I'm pleased to see you once again and to share with you some thoughts about a very exciting passage from Acts chapter 8, part of the unfolding story of how the church became witnesses for Jesus Christ from Judea to Samaria. That's where this passage takes us. It's the story of Philip, and I've chosen this for a specific reason, because Philip, among many other things, was a very, very good listener. And part of what Jill will be sharing in her God's Harvesters course is about the need not only that we should pray, but that we should learn to be good listeners. And Philip is a wonderful example of that. I won't be doing a Bible sheet this week, but Derek will be doing a Bible study, and that will be very helpful to get a fuller picture of Philip and his whole ministry. But very briefly, Philip was appointed as a deacon, and after Stephen's death, when the church was scattered abroad, Philip found his way to Samaria, and so was fulfilling the command of Jesus, as I've just indicated, to go to Samaria. We don't know exactly where, it just tells us he was in a town in Samaria, and he preached the gospel. There were signs and miracles and amazing things happened, and there was conflict. The apostles came down to ensure that those new believers were filled with the Holy Spirit, because that's absolutely necessary if we're going to be Christians. And while this amazing revival was taking place, God spoke to Philip. And so the first thing I want to underline is being a good listener means we need to learn to listen to God well as well, because all of this story only happens because Philip was able to listen to God. And he listened to God first through an angel. And the angel said, leave what you're doing and go south and join the road from Jerusalem to Gaza. We don't know exactly where, but some way out of Jerusalem, he joined that road. And as he joined that road, he saw the Ethiopian eunuch sitting in his chariot. The most important thing about the man was not that he was a eunuch, but that he was the treasurer for Kandake, a very important kingdom in the south of Sudan. So Philip listened to the angel, and he did what he was told, even though it must have seemed very strange and very frustrating. And sometimes God will guide us to leave what we're doing, to make ourselves available for someone he knows is ready to be harvested. So he listened to an angel, but he didn't just listen to an angel. He also listened to God's Spirit within him. And God's Spirit told Philip, go to that chariot and stay near it. Again, Philip might have been rather nervous about this. He was clearly a very wealthy man. He would have all his entourage around him. How was he going to get through the security guards? What was going to happen? But Philip listened to the Holy Spirit. So Philip was first of all a man who learnt to listen to God. And because he listened to God, God could do amazing things. But Philip was not only a man who listened to God, he was a man who listened carefully to other people. And so when he gets to the chariot, he can hear the man is reading. In those days, you didn't just read in your head, you always read aloud. And so Philip could hear what he was reading, and he could tell he was reading from Isaiah, the prophet Isaiah, chapter 53 especially, about the suffering servant. He was led like a sheep to the slaughter, and as a lamb before the shearers is silent, so he did not open his mouth. Philip heard that he was reading from the Bible, and so he knew that this was a person who was on a journey for God. And having listened, he then asked a question. Not, do you want to become a believer, but a question that related to what he heard the man was interested in. Philip said, do you understand what you are reading? A perfectly natural question to ask, and a helpful question to ask. A question which enabled the Ethiopian to open up, not close down. And it's good to learn, as we learn to listen, to learn those open kinds of questions that don't just require a yes, no answer, but provide an opportunity for people to go further. And the man said, How can I unless someone explains it to me? And Philip listened to what the man had to say again. Philip wasn't put off by the man's different race, by the man's different status, or the man's sexuality, come to that. Philip listened to the man, to the person. How can I understand unless someone explains it? And probably because he saw Philip was listening intently and responding to that question, there was another set of words. Why don't you come and sit with me in the chariot so you can explain it to me? And so he did. And Philip, it says, began with that very passage. He didn't just jump in with a prepared speech. He didn't decide, I'll tell the man about the amazing things God's been doing in Samaria. He began where the man was so he could take him further. These are very important steps in being a good listener. What is the person saying? What does that tell me about where they are? How can I provide them with an opportunity to open up? How can I take them from where they are towards Jesus? And as the story unfolds, the man clearly becomes a believer, because when he sees water, he says, what's to stop me being baptized? And he was baptized there and then, with all his entourage watching him. And soon after that, he's on his way to Ethiopia. And Philip seems to disappear from the scene. He travels north and to Azotus or Ashdod, and then to Caesarea on the coast, where he seems to have settled, because we meet him later on in Acts chapter 21, I think it is, with 4 of his daughters who were prophetesses. But the important thing to remember today is that Philip was a good listener. And you might think, I can't be any good to God as a harvester. I don't have a great testimony. I don't know how to explain the gospel that clearly. Please, if you can listen and allow the Holy Spirit to take you step by step, you can be like Philip, not only listening to the man's words, but listening to the man's heart and seeing him move towards a living faith in Jesus Christ. So thank you for listening, and I hope you'll join us for our Zoom communion service this Sunday morning. Bye for now.